I would not order custom drapery from any of the big names. Find a local workroom and make them your best friend. When I came across the window treatment business, I looked at it and I realized, like an epiphany, like window treatments is what my wife would love to do. Measurements were dependent on the person. So you could have one person that could do it really well. $260, the right tool for the right thing, and she would have never touched her settings ever. And that mistake could never happen in the business. Rushing, being tired, frustrated. One of my favorite examples is helicopter customers. Between the human fatigue of being rushed or tired and the helicopter customers, those definitely set the pace for the largest repeating mistakes. One of the hidden things that are cost is return trips.
Hiring is one thing, but training is another. What makes training in this industry so challenging?
One of the things that we did when we started our businesses without any prior experience, focus on one element at a time.
It's time for another episode of Marketing Pains, the podcast about marketing for window treatment and awning companies.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Marketing Pains, the podcast where we talk with real window treatment and awning professionals about what's working in marketing, what's changing in the industry, and how to grow smarter. Today, we're joined by the founder of Franchise Support Services and a longtime leader in the window treatment space, Nathan Eldridge. Nathan comes from a deep background in engineering and tech, and after running successful franchises in Dallas and Houston, he shifted his focus to helping businesses improve accuracy, workflow, and field operations. His work centers on solving real measurement and training challenges that every window treatment and awning company deals with. Welcome to the show, Nathan.
Thank you very much, Will.
Yeah, glad to have you here today. I know we've been friends for a while now, so it's exciting to have you on to kind of talk about what you're up to.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So for anyone who hasn't met you, how did your career in window treatments begin, and how hands-on were you with the measurements and installs early on?
So my journey into the window treatment world was very interesting. So in 2018, 2019, I started to look at franchises. I knew I wanted to buy a franchise. And I probably looked at, probably 80 businesses. And when I came across the window treatment business, I looked at it and I realized, like an epiphany, like window treatments is what my wife would love to do. And it took us about 18 months of exploring and looking at FDBs, but we bought our first franchise in 2021. And that was with Gotcha Covered. It was for my wife to run full time. I kept my corporate job in the back end, and I was going to help with systems and processes because that's what I've done for my career. It took us about 4 months getting into the business and constantly telling our family about how exciting it was and talking with the window treatments. And my wife just gravitated to the design side and the fabrics and all the different type of products. And my sister looked at it and said, wow, this looks awesome. I want to do the same thing. And so within about 4 or 5 months, I partnered with my sister. We opened a second franchise. And then within 1 year, we expanded to 4 territories. And so it was quick, fast, and furious kind of growth into it. Anyone that knows me, I don't sit still very well. And so the growth and the explosion into it, I was there building the systems, the processes, and kind of looking at what we were doing. And, measurements quickly rose to the top of my focus list for my sister and my wife about how to optimize. And what started as just trying to fix something for my family turned into a, new product for the industry.
Very good. And that product is the FSS Window Pro, right?
That's it. Yeah. So the FS Window Pro is the app that we launched. When we first created it, it was really just something that was putting there for us. Being part of a franchise, we have 160 other best friends that are franchise owners, and we started to show it to some of them, and they started to ask, well, how do we get this? We want this in our business. And so we kind of went down a path of just being something we were going to use internally to, okay, let's open it and try to get it to where other franchises can use it, our friends. And then they would tell people, and people started coming to us and saying, well, how do we get access to it? We're not part of the franchise. And so it just kind of bloomed in 2023 into something that we put open to the market, and it's kind of grown word of mouth since then.
That's awesome. Before the FSS Window Pro was even an idea, what were some of those biggest frustrations that you were seeing out in the field?
Man, so measurements were dependent on the person. So you could have one person that could do it really well, one person that did terrible at it. Tape measures, they're error prone in real world conditions, right? You're at the end of the day, you're tired, you're having to bend over, or you're on a ladder reaching up. My wife is very short, so everything that was above her head was a challenge. You also, it's independent on rounding decisions. So, it's very inconsistent from person to person, how they read it, what they round to. In our industry, doing, inside mount and rounding down is very important. Then that came down to writing the measurement. So, introducing the human error of, was that a 5/8 or a 3/8, reading the handwriting later, transcribing it wrong. Definitely were the top pain points. Those 5 were top pain points for us.
Yeah. And as a systems guy, human error is like the bane of your existence, right? The whole reason you build these things.
Yeah, a good system should have no human error. The process should be so robust that anyone can use it, right? You don't need superhumans to run your business.
Right. Yeah. And you've mentioned before that the processes and not the people are often the root of the mistake. So can you unpack that a little bit more?
Yeah. So coming from my corporate background, I had multiple degrees in engineering. Lean is embedded in everything that I've done my whole career. And, errors, when they do happen, it's not human. The human nature is we go, why did you make that mistake? And you focus on the person. A really basic tool that, people learn early on in Lean is 5 whys, right? So when you ask why 5 times, so if you took a measurement that's wrong and you ask, so why was it wrong? It's wrong because someone wrote it down incorrectly. Why did it get written down incorrectly? Because the rep was rushing, relying on their memory. Why were they rushing? Because there wasn't a standard workflow, no validation. Why was there no validation? Because the process was never designed to catch errors. And by the time you get down to the 5th, you're no longer talking about the installer, the sales rep. You're talking about what's missing in the standards or a lack of a tool. Yeah. And so it's really just about bringing that into a workflow and trying to make it where it's optimized, where everyone can succeed at the same level.
Yeah. And so that's awesome. You took that kind of, you drilled down into what the real issue was, tried to start solving for that, which would obviously then work its way back up the chain. What kind of surprised you the most on the tech side, training gap, even resistance to change?
So with the first stage was with my sister and my wife, and their adaptation to new technology was good. I brought them the solution and they were eager to remove problems. And so the adaptation was easy. When we went to the next step, we kind of expanded it to franchises. I found that, people really had a hard time of, well, this is how I've always done it. I've always used tape measures. I've always done, a notepad with a pen and paper. And, somewhere in the journey into launching it into the full market, I heard enough customer feedback that people, maybe didn't trust lasers. They had bought a laser 10 years ago and they tried it and they had accuracy problems. And, a lot of the times if you 5 whys, why did they have accuracy problems on a laser? They treated it like it was a hammer. They threw it in a tool bag. It got thrown in the back of the truck. When most of these lasers need to be treated like a cell phone, right? You don't just throw it in a bag and throw it somewhere. You put it in your pocket. It's taken care of. But one of the things that we've looked at is that adoption of the tech side and the resistance to change is the Recon T1. That's a nice middle ground. So if you have someone that's not ready to fully go into a laser, but they want to go digital, they want to remove some human error, they can go into a Recon T1, which is a Bluetooth tape measure. And that product's unique because it has no calibration. So if you drop it, as long as it powers on, it doesn't have to get recalibrated. So it really helps the trust factor to get them into new tech and the resistance to change. It's not the ideal product. Laser is definitely the ideal product. There's a place for both of them, but it is a really nice stepping stone for people to at least engage in a digital way to change their process.
Yeah. What measuring tool do you prefer people to use or recommend?
Everyone that I do a demo for, I recommend that they buy both. So to me, a laser is like a Phillips screwdriver, and the T1 is like a flathead. So everything that's an inside mount product, you should run the laser for. Everything that's an outside mount product and draperies, you should run the T1 for. And so my recommendation is that you build your processes around that. I tell a lot of people a story that a lady finished measuring a job with her X3 on a Friday, and she had changed the reference point from the back of the device to the front of the device to measure some depth of some windows. And then she put it in her bag and forgot to change it back. And the next Monday, she showed up at a client's house and she measured an entire $37,000 job with the reference point from the front of the device instead of the back. Cost her $37,000 to remake the whole house because everything inside mount was 3.5 inches short, which was a terrible thing to experience. If she had bought that one tool, $260 to have the T1 and use the T1 for that measurement, she would have never, ever changed her settings. And so like the idea of this, again, lean, right? $260, the right tool for the right thing, and she would have never touched her settings ever. And that mistake could never happen in the business. And so I try to convince everyone to think about it that way, that there's two tools, one for inside mount, one for outside mount, and you build it into your process.
Ah, very good. Is that a pretty common measurement mistake that people make, or do you see some other ones that are pretty consistent?
I think that a lot of people wouldn't try to use the laser to measure the depth of a window. They probably would just pull out their tape measure and do it manually. So I don't think that's a common mistake, but it's definitely available. Anyone that messes with the settings, you could happen into that as a mistake.
Yeah. Do you see any mistakes that repeat themselves over and over again?
Rushing, being tired, frustrated. One of my favorite examples is helicopter customers. And the helicopter customer, you're in their home, so right, they want to follow you around and watch you as you're going through their house. But the helicopter customer is the person that is like following you 6 inches off your side and wanting to talk to you the entire time. And you're trying to focus on measuring. And you could go up on a step ladder, you get the top measurements, you come back down the ladder, you go to write at the notepad, and you don't remember what the dimension was because you just lost it because you stopped for a second to answer a question to her. And so, between the human fatigue of being rushed or tired and the helicopter customers, those definitely set the pace for the largest repeating mistakes.
I feel like we should be able to create like a Seinfeld episode out of this, right?
Yes, for sure.
Similar to the close talker, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So are there any hidden costs that business owners don't always calculate beyond just the remake that you explained in the one example?
Yeah, remakes are the top, and we can see that directly on our P&L as owners and operators. But, one of the hidden things that are cost is return trips. So you were in the home and you think that they're going to do only inside mount products. So you only measured inside mount. Then you get home and, I don't know what other people experience. In our two businesses, we probably average about 2.5 quotes per person. So we're between 2 and 3 iterations of quotes. And a lot of times they're going to move from an inside mount to an outside mount. Maybe they went to a friend's house that night and they had beautiful outside mount. They're like, you know what? We're inspired. We want to change. And if you didn't capture those measurements, guess what? You're doing a new trip and you're going back out there and remeasuring for outside mount. These add up. They chip away at your margins. They take away your capacity, your team to schedule, more consults and installs. And so I think that's probably one of the worst things that we do. And we have a solution for that. You're standing at the window, you capture all the measurements at one time. You measure inside and outside. And in, 15 seconds of that window, you can iterate your quote 10 times. It doesn't matter. You have all the dimensions you need as the customer changes their mind on products. And so, yeah.
Interesting. So it's a good habit for somebody that's doing the measuring to have that, that kind of muscle memory to do that. Are there any other habits or field routines that you see that really separate the pros from, the noobs, the starters?
Measuring the same way every time. So having a process, and the pros definitely want to capture the inside mount, the outside mount dimensions all at one time. They never want to have to come back. We modeled the app around how we measure, and that's just how we do it. But we built in a template feature so anyone can take it and mold it to match their measurement processes. And then they save it. So every time they walk up to the window, it's in the exact order. They can add custom measurements and it makes it their sheet. And they do the same thing every single time. That repetition really helps get people in the flow. When they're measuring every window different based on where they're standing, or right-handed, left-handed, and measuring left to right or right to left, top down, it really makes a big difference in the repeatability. So
yeah. Can you walk us through the day in the life of someone using the FSS Window Pro app?
Yeah. So today you start, first thing in the morning, you're going to create the clients that you're going to go measure that day. So you'd look at your calendar, you'd be creating whatever clients you're going to be measuring. When you show up to their house, you go in and you start measuring. In the app, we organize today by rooms. Most residential are organizing by the living room, the kitchen, bedroom 1, primary bedroom, things like that. Inside of them, we have auto naming in the app that kind of goes through window AA through ZZ, which lets you put about 271 windows per room. And then for every single window, you're going to capture all the dimensions. We have a section for product notes, installation notes, and job site pictures. And one of the really key things that we try to teach people in the demo phase, that job site pictures, you should take 2 pictures per window. You should be taking a picture during the tech measure so you can see that drywall damage was already there. Your team didn't do it. And then after you do the install, you can take another picture of it. And then that really serves as kind of your warranty claim when they call you back and say, hey, the slat's broken. You've got that picture as your crew went to leave the house of it perfectly installed. You send it back to the customer and they go, oh, you know what? My nephew was playing in there last night. Maybe he broke it. Maybe it wasn't y'all. So the before and after really is powerful. And then you access all of that data from our portal. You can pull all the measurements out in an Excel file or in a PDF report.
Okay.
Both of those come with all the notes. And then you can also pull down zip files of all the high resolution pictures. And so it really lets you just have a complete data set of that pulled out. A lot of our customers want those files moved into their own cloud or customer storage. So they're pulling them out of our portal and loading it into their SharePoint or Google Drive or whatever they use.
Yeah, very good. I know we've got it in Lead Boomerang. We've got a section specifically for documents and pictures. And a lot of our clients will do that exact thing. They'll take before and afters and save them in there, tied to that contact record, so that they have that when they call back a couple months later and said, you broke this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important. People that are doing notepads, you're not going to ever come back and find those. And a lot of our customers, you ask them, how many jobs did you do last month? Oh, we did 30 jobs. Okay. How many pictures on your camera roll from that job? 1,400. How are you going to find the one picture to that one window that you need for the warranty claim? So, having it organized with an easy button is really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Having all that data tied to something that's easily searchable. What data do you think people often forget or miss, especially when they're measuring by hand?
Definitely obstructions or the installation side of things. And so they'll maybe note down the dimensions for the product. They might sketch down something for the product, but maybe they're, for that one window, they're drilling into tile. And so they need to have a note before they come to install that they need to bring the right bits to be able to drill into tile or concrete. So really the installation side, the obstructions. One of the things that we found, a lot of our customers are using 1099, installers that are not their own employees. And so to be able to capture that, especially if your product's lead time is 10, 12 weeks, you're not going to remember that job's nuances when it comes time to do the install. So our installation notes let them quickly look at that, see what they noted, and then communicate the day before with their 1099 crew. Hey, we have something special. We're doing this, this, and this. Make sure you bring the tools. So it's definitely that side of the business, I think, where people miss capturing data and they just hope they cover it. If you look at your installer's bags, they're full of shims and drywall repair and washers and all this stuff that they've learned because they weren't told what they needed. So they just carry a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Back to systems and processes, right? You have something in place that you have a way to remember that thing 12 weeks later, or at least something to remind you about it.
Exactly.
Love that. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about training new reps and installers. Hiring is one thing, but training is another. What makes training in this industry so challenging?
This industry, especially in the U.S., is very interesting. So in the U.S., we have about 10,000 retailers, and most of them are small businesses, which means, unfortunately, that they probably don't have established processes. So as they go to scale, they're bringing someone in and their processes are in their head. And, there's things you can do to do that. But we hope to solve at least a little tiny segment that we're in, which is the measuring side. And, we when we launched the app, we made a full suite. We have about 30 videos on our YouTube channel. This next 2 weeks, we're going to be launching a new in-app tutorial that people can walk through and teach themselves the in-depth application, how to use it and how to apply it to measuring.
nice.
So we hope that we can help solve the training of new staff, at least in the measuring portion. But definitely, when it's a single owner operator and they're bringing on their first person, there's challenges there.
That's really helpful. When somebody is brand new, what skills or fundamentals should companies really focus on first?
Product knowledge. Definitely, this industry can be really overwhelming for a sales rep. There's so many things to sell. One of the things that we did when we started our businesses without any prior experience, focus on one element at a time. And so we picked one vendor and we partnered with that one vendor and we sold those products for, 4, 5, 6 weeks until we were comfortable. And then we added the next vendor. So really building it on one piece at a time without trying to, boil the entire ocean at one shot.
Right. That makes sense. What are some of the most common pitfalls when you're onboarding like a new salesperson or a new installer?
If it's your first person, you're so busy, you don't have time to train them, which means they have to learn on the job, which usually translates directly to mistakes being made and the expenses hitting the P&L. And so, the pitfalls would be having them have 6 to 8 weeks where they don't have to work on their own, and allowing them to shadow you for 6 to 8 weeks. And then the on-the-job training is actually training, and it's not on-the-job learning, which is different because you're just out there learning how to swim or sink. So,
yeah. Are there any tools or approaches that help these new reps avoid kind of freezing up on the job?
I think back to really the selling one brand at a time would probably be the same answer. Along with this, I think that you ensure that whoever they go out and sell, you partner them with the vendor that has the best retailer support. So everyone knows that you've got one vendor with an awesome rep, one vendor with a terrible rep. Put them with the one that's the awesome rep. That rep is going to be your largest resource to help train them. That's not taking your bandwidth, so they can come down that product learning curve without always having to rely on you. So I would evaluate which vendors give you the best support in your area.
Yeah. And obviously bringing somebody on that's new is a step towards scaling your business, right? As your team grows, communication sometimes becomes the thing that breaks. Where do you see those cracks typically show up?
So you kind of look at the life cycle of a job. You have the measure, the quote, the order, the install. And if it's one person that's doing all 4 steps and they're organized, it's okay. You have one person doing all 4 steps and they're disorganized, you start to have problems. But the larger cracks are when you have multiple people having to do a handoff. And so you did the measure. And if today you're doing measurements on a napkin, on a notepad, and you just take a picture, you send it to them. And that person's supposed to read your handwriting to work on the quote. Or then they're supposed to look at that and then do the order. So that communication and the handoff between the technical measure, the products, the measurements into the quote and order phase definitely is an area for cracks, and communication really gets it.
Yeah. And as an owner, how can an owner kind of keep quality consistent when they can't be in all the different places, especially again as they are scaling their business?
I'm going to be a broken record here, but processes, right? So giving them the same thing to follow every time doesn't matter if it's something super sophisticated or if it's, a one note with 3 things already filled in, but they fill in the same 3 things for every job. So it could be something simple. It doesn't have to be this giant AI driven tax stack that everyone gets they don't even know what that is. You have to Google it. It could just be a note file that you organize and the team collaborates on. So as long as it's there and it's trainable and repeatable and people use it.
Yeah. And I'm with you on the process thing. It's a hugely different world when you start getting into building systems and writing SOPs and having things that are standard, that it's going to start at step A and it's going to end at step Z. And if everything's followed, you're going to be in a good spot.
Yep.
That's great. For businesses that are juggling installs, measurements, orders, what leadership habits help kind of keep everything coordinated?
If there's multiple staff, having clear accountabilities for each step in that process. So knowing who's doing the tech measures, who's doing the quoting, who's doing the ordering, who's managing the schedules, the communication with the installers and the customer. If it's a single owner operator, it's back to the system and repeatable process. They've got to know what they're doing. Over communication is just a critical step. When you start to have multiple team members, and kind of a project management software is really critical to manage those handoffs between accountabilities. In our business, we use Asana.
Okay.
There's a handful. You can Google it. There's like 30 options out there.
Yeah.
But having something that's the standard place that you go to, it's where you communicate, it's how you hand things off together, really helps when you're juggling, especially between, the installs require, scheduling with multiple people's calendars, measurements have many data sets, and then ordering has all its own things, right? You got to make sure you don't miss one key attribute that ruins the order and ends in a remake.
Yeah. Yeah, Asana is a great tool, and that's a project management tool, not necessarily a CRM. They're typically different tools.
It's really just project management, and it gives you, the views. You can look at it like, a Gantt view or Kanban board, but again, you can. It's not about the software; it's about putting a tool in place and using it. So you can do something really simple in Excel or something fancy like Asana.
Right. Yeah. As the business gets bigger, it's better probably not to use the Excel sheets, right? But it's a great place to start.
The Excel sheet and the SharePoint that someone accidentally deletes or corrupts, it's terrible.
Yeah. For us, we use ClickUp, but we've used Teamwork in the past and a couple others, but like you said, any of them are good. They're going to get the job done, right?
Yep.
Very good. What technology trends do you think are going to change how window companies measure, sell, and install over the next couple of years?
LiDAR is going to change the world. Today you can't measure LiDAR with something at the level of accuracy that we need in our business. But it's only a matter of time. It's coming down its innovation curve right now. There are a few LiDAR scanners that are on the market that can scan even beyond the accuracy that we require, but they average, $80,000 to $100,000 right now. And so, but they're also, those outputs are super configured for like engineering firms, so they're heavy and other software. They're not dumbed down where you can just get the output usable to what we need. But I do think in the next 5 to 8 years, it will advance enough that people can be using their phone with a LiDAR scanner and scan windows.
Yeah. Pretty much all of the robo vacuums that come out now are LiDAR.
Yeah. And if you can work in half inches today for your job, LiDAR is ready to change the world.
Right.
But if you need something that's under a half inch accuracy, there's a little left to desire there.
Yeah, but I totally agree about that. As I watch these innovations, and like I said, all the RoboVacs have them now, have LiDAR. It's just like common, where 2 years ago that was, ooh, this one has LiDAR, we should get that one,
Absolutely.
Why is field data and documentation becoming more important than ever?
Our products are far more complex. If you went back and looked at window treatments 15 years ago and window treatments today, we're adding motorization, you're adding controls, you're adding what, Wi-Fi connector you're going to have. They're just getting more complex. And so when you look at that field data and the documentation, the more complex the products come, the more important it is that we drive efficiencies and how we grow that process, how those standardizations and keeping the data organized is super important, from the technical measure to the ordering.
Yeah. What about somebody who's maybe a little bit intimidated by a lot of the tech? Where do you think they should begin? Like, what's an easy entry point into this world?
So when it comes to digital measurements, the first step, we'd have a couple customers, like the first baby step, if they want to try it, is they can use the app and still measure with a tape measure. And so they're still using the tape. They're making that decision of what the dimension is that they want, and they manually input it in. Once they're comfortable with that, we try to get them to look at the Recon T1, go to a digital solution, so it's transferring it for them. It's now removing the human error out of the rounding process. And then once we get them comfortable with that, we try to step them into the X3, the laser, and then they're able to use the full digital ecosystem. Um, so if they're intimidated by it, that's typically the path that we get them to go down.
Nice. Okay. How do you see automation, AI, some of these digital measurement tools influencing the industry long term? I know you and I are both huge fans of Chat GPT and using AI, both in our own businesses and, for our customers as well.
Yeah, I use Chat GPT and Perplexity probably 300-400 times a day. It's open on everything that I have. AI is coming, and how it can be applied. It's the universe is the limitation. I think that the first place it's going to come into is how we do visualizations of products for our customers, along with configurations. And so I know that there's a few of the CPQ companies that are already looking at how they're applying AI to their configurators and then applying the visualizations. I've got a whole sample set with Chat GPT. I've built a whole agent for visualization of window treatment products.
Yeah.
It's quite good of what I could do in about 5 days of training it. So I definitely think that's coming. When it comes to the measurement data plus the product configuration, I think that the AI is going to add extra intelligence where you come in and you do what I tell you, where you do the inside and the outside mount measurements, and then you do the product configuration, and then AI will make the decisions of what products, what deductions, and what like gaps. So I think that the future state there will be the application that we feed it the raw data. It looks at the products you're doing. It has the product knowledge. Today we only have that kind of product knowledge maybe in one of the CPQ vendors, but then you apply that and let the AI choose what the dimensions and deductions are to order the product. I think that's going to be a really good logical step for our industry.
Yeah. Yeah. On the other side of that, what tech do you think is really overhyped right now? And what's kind of, maybe underappreciated as well?
I don't know if I can think of any tech that's overhyped. Too many people are calling things AI when it's really not AI. I could go down a whole list of stories about this, but everyone's throwing the word AI on things that they want to say it's AI when it's really not. It's just you programmed it, so it's not learning, it's not machine learning, it's not large language models. So I think that's probably the overhype. Everyone just thinks they can throw that word, those two letters on the end of something, and it's a new product. But I don't think that's quite right.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's not a day go by that somebody doesn't say, "Oh, that's probably AI." Wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk real quick about some industry pain points for owners. How do you think, or how should owners think about measurement, communication, accountability, all kind of as a connected system?
Easy. One word: Zapier. So, especially for these small companies, right? So if you don't have a full ecosystem built and you're not sure how to do it, Zapier. And if you're listening to this and you don't know what Zapier is, go to YouTube, type in, Zapier demo, and explore it. One of the things that I tell my customers a lot of times when they ask me, how do I connect this data into my ecosystem? What should I use? I tell them, go to Zapier and go look at what apps are already pre-programmed and integrated, and make your decisions off the list that's already done. So then you have to do no programming, integration, or anything. We have a version of our Excel sheet that is made for Zapier, that if someone wants, they can get it, and you can map all the data fields into anything else. And so, Zapier, I think, is at the cutting edge. I think that there's a competitor now, Make.com, I think, that's cheaper, but their number of integrations are less. And so you just have to look at what apps you want to use. But when it comes to an owner thinking about how to make a connected system between measurements, communication, accountability, I think that Zapier should be their starting point, and then they look at the ecosystem of apps that are already there.
So I'm assuming that means FSS has a Zapier connection.
So we have the CRM file that you can zap directly into what you want it to go to. So we don't integrate directly with the app itself. You get the file and then map the file into wherever you want it to go with the data. Yeah.
Nice. I first remember, I remember when I learned about Zapier, and it must have been 10 years ago at this point. But it's wild how many people still don't know that there's that system out there that makes it able to talk from one to another easily.
if you went back 18 months ago, you had to be someone that was tech savvy to really use it, right? So it
Sure.
still required you to be tech savvy. Today, you can go to Chat GPT and tell it, I want to connect this and this with a Zapier. Give me the 10 steps to do it.
Yeah.
And it will literally tell you, like, click here, do that. Like it. So you add Chat GPT to how to connect with Zapier and it's done.
Yeah.
Everyone's a tech genius.
Yeah, right. In your view, what separates companies that keep growing from those that kind of stay stale or stuck where they're at?
So probably first starting with people. So someone that is able to build staff and then empower them. That means, when I say empower them, probably three elements to empowering them. They got to have the tools, they got to have the training, and then you've got to trust them without micromanaging them. And so definitely if you're stuck in, that's the side that you have to look at. Once you have that fundamental piece, then it's back to the systems. Are they repeatable? Are they scalable? And then, honestly, in our industry today, most of my customers, most of the retailers are small, privately owned companies. It's about providing work-life balance. They chose to come work for you as a small business over a large corporation for that value of that. And if you bring someone on and you want them to work 65 hours, like, the same as you as the owner, there's an expectation. You as the owner have a vested interest different than just an employee. And so giving them that kind of work-life balance there, I think those three things would help companies that are stuck.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned this before on a podcast, but I still remember the saying, we, as owners, you'll work 80 hours to avoid working 40, So,
absolutely true.
Yeah, for sure. All right, a couple bonus questions for you. And I appreciate you taking some time today. What's something you wish more designers or window treatment businesses owners understood about custom drapery?
The number one thing is that I would not order custom drapery from any of the big names. Find a local workroom and make them your best friend. Buy them a wonderful steak dinner once a quarter. Tell them thank you. Let them become integrated into your business. Build your processes around how you're going to communicate with them, and really take your service in the custom drapery world to the next level. That I think is a great foundation part. If you can build that as a workroom in your area and an installer that builds the relationship together with the drapery workroom and solving problems, it's extremely, extremely beneficial.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I like that. What's a tool or trick that you swear by that more people should be using?
If you're using our app, I show everyone using a wrist holder for the phone. And so if you have the laser on a lanyard, I'm right-handed, so the laser goes in my right hand, and then the wrist holder holds the phone, you're completely hands-free. And if you're walking around the house with an extension pole or a ladder, you're going up and down and doing stuff. I mean, your ability, your speed is just unbelievable. It might not look like it's the coolest thing in the world, but man, the feedback that I've had from customers that have tried it, like, usually the first response back to me is, oh my God, why have I never tried this before? This is amazing.
That's great. I know we talked a little bit about AI and some of the long-term changes we think are coming in the industry. Any trends that you think are going to reshape the industry maybe in the next 2 to 3 years?
So definitely LiDAR and the technology side, but trends, this is probably like a confrontational point, but I'll say vendor consolidation. Right, with what's happening with Hunter Douglas and everything else going on in the background, I think that the industry has a great potential to look different 10 years from now based on vendor consolidation. That could mean a positive thing. We're sitting here talking about processes and getting lean. If there is vendor consolidation, there's a chance that you're being able to use one ordering system in the future and get to more products and more portfolio. So that could be a trend that we see, but time will tell.
Especially with back to Chat GPT, I think as more people use that, somebody's going to come up with a really easy way to get a lot of that done.
Yeah, I agree.
Or maybe not easy, but easy for the end user.
Yeah. The journey to get there won't be easy.
Yeah. For somebody that's listening, maybe who's early on in their business, what's a piece of advice that you would give to them?
Metrics. So understanding your business, your business should be run by numbers. And if you can't quantify everything in your business, you should understand your marketing funnel, where you're getting return on ad spend and investments from the marketing side, making the decisions of where to spend that money on marketing based on data. Then getting into the business, looking at your consults, how many consults you're doing, how many consults are turning into close rate, understanding the close rate based on product. A lot of times, in really good metrics, you could come back and correlate what products you're selling to a close rate. And you see, when I sell Alta, my close rate's 85%. I sell this product and my close rate's 30%. Maybe you start to make decisions of how you structure your product, what you want to push. So metrics are that you can't be over or underdone on metrics. It has to be just right. And you should make your business decisions based on those. A lot of times, someone just starting out in this industry, they either bought a franchise like I did, or they maybe worked for someone, they saw it and they just wanted to do their own thing and they broke out and started a shop. I hate to say ChatGPT again, but if you don't know where to start, go to ChatGPT. And one of the things that I've told other people, ask ChatGPT to ask you 35 questions about your business so that it can define all the metrics you want. That one prompt, it's just going to ask you a bunch of questions and you answer it. And at the end, you will have an entire data set of the metrics that you should track. And if you don't know how to track them, you then could ask ChatGPT to build you a plan of how you could put something in place to track it.
Right.
So ChatGPT can solve this for so many people.
Yeah. And from that, you can build KPIs so that you can then scale, which is what we were talking about earlier, right?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I want to get information from you on how people can learn more about your business. And first, I want to know, what else are you working on?
So the app's the primary thing. Our second, we have a service behind it. So focusing on measuring, we have a commercial takeoff side of the business. So we have a group of engineers and architects that work for us that do commercial takeoffs. And so if you get, a bid, an ITB, an invitation to bid lands in your lap, and it's for 1,000 windows for this huge high rise, and you have no idea where to start because you tried to download it and, it was a zip file. When you opened it, there was, 285 files with like 4,000 pages. You don't know what to do. We turnkey that. So you can send us all of those files and then we will do the commercial takeoff. And what comes back to you, is a consolidated spreadsheet that you can then take and bid and do that. And so we've been doing that for about 2 years. We've got some really, really good customers that are just crushing into the commercial space that send us 10 to 15 jobs a month. We have a connected service that will be coming this year in 2026. So if we do the commercial takeoff and let's say you have 1,000 windows, we're going to be having a new module in the app that we will load those 1,000 windows for you into the app with the commercial takeoff dimensions. And then when you go and you do the technical measure, you're actually seeing the progress through the job. Everything's made for you. If everything's already named, Office 102, Office 103, we can save you 5 hours of organization work in a job that size of organizing the windows, and it'll just be turnkey, easy button. So that's the biggest thing that we're working on along with this right now.
Wow, that's a heck of a shortcut, right?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And it's really an enabler. A lot of our customers, it's their first time to ever do a commercial takeoff, and that can be really intimidating, right?
Yeah.
Even looking at the Division 12 specifications, if it's 400 pages, how do you find and make sure you didn't miss something for window treatments? And so we do the entire review and provide you a consolidated report that make you feel really confident in it. So it's a nice service.
Wow, I love that. So tell me more about how people can learn about your company and your app.
We have a YouTube channel, FSS app. So YouTube at FSS app. You can go to our website, which is also fssapp.com. And you can email me directly, which is Nathan at fssapp.com. So pretty straightforward and simple.
Awesome. And tell me about your integrations. I know you guys integrate with Solitech.
We have been integrated with Solitech for about a year. And so if you measure with our app in the field, you can then select the final dimensions that you want to order the product to. You could have a window that you take 15, 20 measurements on, but at the end of the day, you're only going to use 2 dimensions to order the product, right? One width, one height. And so our integration with Solitech today, you take all the field measurements and then you can iterate through the quote process, and we export that data directly into Solitech. So it is live. Once you save that window, it takes something like 2.5 milliseconds and it's loaded there live. So if you're trying to measure a window and building the quote simultaneously, by the time that you switch on your tablet application over to Solitech, it's already there in your measure sheet. We're in conversations with quite a few of the other CPQ companies. One of our goals as a company is that we want our measurement data to connect with everything.
Yeah.
And so it's, we're really focused only in our niche. We want to solve all of the industry's problems in measuring, and then we just want to help make that final step where our data will go to wherever it's going to be ordered from. And so in a perfect end world for us, we would integrate with all of the manufacturers' websites and everybody. So the last human error now is to take stuff from our measure sheet and to order the product with it. And so if we can make that a digital handshake for the customers, we're helping them remove all human error from the process.
That's great. And I know our developers are working on a connection with you with the lead boomerang system as well. So
absolutely. And that'll be great, because then they get their CRMs, and once they know that they're going to be going to do a technical measure, everything comes over from the CRM, just helping them save time. So they're not sitting there having to put in their client's details. Everything's there.
Yeah. It's going to be great. Well, listen, Nathan, thank you so much for being on today. I appreciate you explaining a little bit about what you guys do and what you're up to.
I appreciate it. Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So thanks so much for joining us, Nathan Eldridge. If this episode got you rethinking how you measure, train, or scale your team, that's the point. Better data leads to better decisions. Share it with a friend in the trade, and make sure to follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever you listen. We've got more expert conversations just like this coming soon. Thanks, everybody.